Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Recently, DC Comics announced that they were going to be raising the price on Batman comics to $6. And your DC Comics is doing this because they say that sales on the Batman comic are at an all-time low, and they believe that this is the only course of action that they're going to need to take. Now, when I take a critical examination of DC's decision to raise the price of Batman comics to $6 in a middle of a sales slump, it seems like a move made out of desperation. Now, this effort is probably meant to satisfy the bean counters as related to printing costs, but it's eventually going to do more long-term damage to the DC Batman brand, and is going to hurt lots of comic shops all across the country. Now, many people have heard me say that the comic book industry is completely insane, and this decision to raise the price of a comic book that has not been selling is one of those completely insane decisions as I see it, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And to raise the price of comic books that aren't selling and expecting more people to pick up the book, that's just completely insane as I see it. Now, a couple of years ago, I was struggling to sell books on the SJS Direct imprint, and I was struggling to reach readers on as related to many of my new titles. And I had gone to the Harlem Book Fair in 2009 and 2010, and I had only sold one paperback book at both events that I went each year. So that had really frustrated me, and I realized that I wasn't going anywhere with readers, so I decided to shift gears, and I decided to focus on ebooks after my best-selling author friend had told me that the ebook market was starting to explode. So when I went to the ebook market, I changed my approach, and I went there looking to reach new readers, and I knew that I would have to use a loss leader approach. Now, the loss leader approach is one where the creator will give away a sample of a product in an effort to try to reach new readers so that they can see how great the product is. And I used that loss leader approach in 2011 as related to my SJS Direct YA ebook exclusives campaign, and as a result of that YA ebook exclusives campaign, people found out how great many of the books on the SJS Direct imprint were, and after reading those free samples, they went out here to go buy more books. And I used this approach over the years to reach new readers, and it has been a proven success towards building momentum for the SJS Direct imprint. In fact, on many of my book series, like the ISIS series and the E-Steam series, it has led to me finding readers all across the globe, and many of those readers, they come back for the new ISIS and E-Steam series books, and some people come back for the back books in the ISIS and E-Steam series, and some people come back and get the entire run of books. That's a campaign, how successful the campaign was in getting new readers to pick up SJS Direct books on the ISIS series and the E-Steam series. And right now I use the same approach on the John Haynes series on occasion, and that leads to people coming back for the new books, the back books, and some people coming back for the entire run. And when people start to see how great the books are, they anticipate getting more books. Unfortunately, the DC Comics bean counters, they're not thinking about taking risks as related to getting comics in people's hands. No, all they're thinking about is these printing costs are high and people aren't buying the books, but they're not asking critical questions as related to why people aren't buying Batman. Now, Batman was selling for a good 4 or 5 years since the New 52 relaunch, but once your Tom King came on to Batman and wound up jumping the shark as related to the Batman Catwoman wedding, the book has been creatively going downhill. And sales dropped after that 50th issue of Batman, and it further continued to drop after the murder of Alfred. And the Batman book, really, as I see it, has not really been in a good place ever since the end of the Hush storyline. Stuff like Damian Wayne have really derailed the Batman comic organically, because the whole idea of Batman having a son really has not really flowed organically into the series, because a lot of people, they wanted Robin to be them, and Robin was a representation of us. This is what the creators Bill Finger and Bob Kane have said about Robin. He was supposed to be a insert for the reader, and when they introduced Damian Wayne, that practically threw off Batman's dynamics as related to storytelling, and those dynamics further got derailed with the Tom King type of storytelling, which was just uneven and meandering. And then once Alfred was murdered, we saw the whole Batman paradigm completely collapse, because Alfred was a core character to the Batman character. He was the father figure that was substituting for Thomas Wayne, and he was an essential piece to Batman's story paradigm. And once they got rid of Alfred and took him out of the series, that practically led to the complete derailing of the Batman book, because Alfred, again, a core character, then you have Damian Wayne throwing off the dynamics as related to the whole reader identification element, and the whole book just has been falling apart. And instead of dealing with these structural issues as related to the storyline and the story paradigm and the story model, what DC Comics decides to do is raise the price on existing books instead of going out of their way to recruit a talented writer to come in and try to rebuild this book before it becomes what I call, a completely, what they call creatively total, because this book is still salvageable at this point. And if you can get a writer who has the mechanical skills to rebuild the paradigm and be able to get the paradigm back on track, you can probably get Batman back on track and get readers excited about the Batman character and the Batman part of the DC universe. Unfortunately, instead of DC Comics going out of their way to find a seasoned writer like myself to try to mechanically repair much of the damage that writers like Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV, and your Tom King have done to the character over the last decade and get this mechanical damage repaired, they continue to go on with this mechanically damaged Batman paradigm, and this mechanically damaged story is just the thing that is leading to readers dropping the book, and they further have more of an incentive to drop the book because the book is just going to cost $6. I mean, the whole thing that had a lot of people reading Batman was the fact that the price was not that high. I mean, at $3.99, people will a lot of completists will buy Batman books that aren't that great because they want to keep that run going. But once that book hits $6, that's where the entertainment value per dollar drops on the comic, and that's when people start looking at competing products like the ones I produce at the SJS Direct imprint, because for a few dollars more, you can pick up a John Haynes series book like John Haynes Taking Care of Business, or John Haynes The Man with Nothing to Lose, or John Haynes Dark Succubus, and get a full John Haynes series story, complete and easy to read with an easy entry point without reading a whole bunch of continuity. Or for the price of 2 Batman comics or 3 Batman comics, you can pick up a full novel like The Temptation of John Haynes, or Spellbound, or one of the other SJS Direct books. Or if you want to go out here and be able to get a lot of entertainment value per dollar, you can go over to HBO Max or Disney Plus or one of these other ones and these streaming services, and you can be able to watch as many movies and TV shows as you want. Now, when Wonder Woman 84 came out, I spent $15 on an HBO Max sub for a month, and I got to see not only Wonder Woman 84, but I also got to see Action Jackson. I got to see the Justice League movie with Starman and Jessica Cruz, and I got to see several other DC animated superhero movies, all for $14. And the same thing with Amazon Prime. You can get to see a bunch of movies for $14. So for the price of 2.5 comics, you get an opportunity to watch like 4, 5, 6 movies, and many of that, and that's a higher entertainment value per dollar, because if you had to buy those movies on DVD, you're getting $50, $60 worth of movies for $14, and that's all from the streaming service. So the comic at $6 is not really giving you a high entertainment value per dollar. And the big problem at DC is that you have editorial that doesn't seem to understand that there are serious cracks in Batman mechanically, and they need to go and do some work on Batman mechanically, because a lot of these writers have come in and they have done serious damage to Batman's structure of his story. They've done damage to his story paradigm, and they have gone out here and damaged key parts of his story model. So it's hard for readers to get into Batman because Batman does not feel like Batman. Now, I've been reading some of these Batman comics, and when I compare them to the runs of people like Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, and the runs of people like Alan Grant and Norman Brayfogle, it just does not hold up compared to those classic runs of comics. Those classic runs of comics all have core elements that fit who Batman is and fit Batman's model. And even the animated series, which you can also get on HBO Max for nothing now, I've had to pay $80 for the DVD back in the day. You're getting all those episodes which give you far better Batman stories, but the Batman comic is just not up to par, and raising the price on a subpar product doesn't give people an incentive to go out here and buy that subpar product. The big problem with DC is they don't really want to go out here and say, hey, this Batman comic is mechanically having issues, and they don't want to go get a seasoned story mechanic like myself to come in and fix the damage. Now, if they don't want to pay a writer like myself to come in here, because we're going to charge probably $300-$400 a page, because the type of mechanical work that needs to be done is far more going to cost far more than James Tynion IV is doing right now, and they want to pay James Tynion IV real cheap. But it's just cheaper to hire a guy like me to come in and fix the mechanical problems, because if I fix the mechanical problems, DC is going to have a valuable intellectual property that they can mine for stories later on. And that's something many of the bean counters at DC and AT&T and Warner Brothers aren't thinking about regarding this Batman comic. No, all they're thinking is, we're going to make a fast dollar on this Batman comic and try to get it through the $6 in the short term, not understanding you need to fix the mechanical problems in the long term, because these mechanical issues, if they're not dealt with, they are going to exacerbate, and then eventually you're going to wind up with a creatively totaled character like Kamala Khan or Carol Danvers, who it's just going to be impossible for another creator to come in here and repair the damage. But at this point, the damage is, while it's pretty bad, it's still fixable. And if you go out here and hire a professional, you go out here and get that professional to get this character on track so that you can continue generating wealth from licensing the product, licensing the character, and selling the character. Because if you have bad stories, then it's not possible for the creators to go out here and fix that character. No, it's not possible for them to be able to keep that character popular and relevant, because this character has a string of bad stories, and those bad stories are following the character, destroying the reputation and the brand of the character. So when I look at this $6 Batman price, it's a troubling trend, and again, it just shows how DC has just given up in some ways as related to its business and the publishing division, and how they're still following a certifiably insane business model, because you don't want, when a character has mechanical issues, that's when you get a new creative team in, and you get that new creative team to rebuild this character and get this character on track. So I'm looking at this, again, $6 price, and this is not going to be good, especially for all the comic shops out here. A lot of these comic shops, they rely on Batman to get them through slow sales periods. They rely on Batman to cover the sales of weaker books. And if you've got Batman at $6, it's going to be harder to sell other books, because if you've got Batman at $6, that means that the few people who are still buying comics are going to drop a title, and that's going to hurt comic shops in the long term. So as a guy who understands the publishing business, I understand this is a very bad business decision, and it's one that's going to hurt the comic book industry, and it's going to hurt because we have people who really don't understand the business of publishing, and they don't understand that when you have a comic book character like Batman, who's a franchise and a flagship, and they're struggling to get sales, that's when you go out here and you make a campaign to bring in readers by, one, getting a new creative team, two, getting somebody to do a marketing campaign to get this comic in people's hands, give out a lot of freebies, even downloadable PDFs, something to get it in readers' hands to say, hey, this is what Batman looks like right now, and you should give Batman a try. You want to get people getting out here, getting them to think about this, getting this book in their hands, and you want to be able to build that momentum towards rebuilding the trust on the readers, so you can get them to start going out here to pick up books. Because when I saw things were starting to struggle on the SJS Direct imprint, I said I can't just keep doing the exact same thing, going to these book fairs and getting ignored. No, I have to do something to get noticed with those who want to buy books. And when I went to the ebook marketplace and I started building the brand there, I knew I had to give something away in order to get something, and eventually that led to, again, people going out here picking up books in the series and even picking up the entire run. And this is something that could happen for the comic book industry if they were able to go out here and give it a try. I believe that if they went out here and, got a good creative team on Batman, did 2 to 3 issues, gave them away, that would build the momentum for the Batman book, and that would get people going to comic shops and get them buying Batman once again. And that's what the kind of strategy that DC needs in their editorial and marketing departments. But sadly, they don't have those type of people. Sadly, they have too many social justice warriors out here, and all they're thinking about is making books that promote identity politics or other sorts of nonsense, and not thinking about running DC like a business and making sure that their flagship characters are in flagship shape. Now, I'm working on developing my own John Haynes comic, and I still need your support so I can be able to pay for the pages and the colors. And I've already got the script ready, and I've already got my budget planned out. So if you want to donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, that'll help me further move towards the goals of getting this comic to the marketplace. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format, Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today.